So Caroline Lucas was in the news this week for all the wrong reasons. Man, this week has been chock full of glorious news to cover in the UK. Come, take a seat and bask in this cringe. For those of you who may not be in the know, and I wouldn't blame you if you were, or are foreign listeners, Caroline Lucas is the head of the Green Party in the UK. Though not of the Green Party in Scotland. They split because the former are Scottish nationalist and even more socialist. But regardless, she is the leader, and she is a Remainer. A very big Remainer, to the point she will go against a democratic mandate in order to prevent no-deal Brexit, or Brexit in general, from occurring, by proposing an all-female cabinet. How? Well, let us find out, shall we? And it wouldn't be a Green Party video without an article from The Guardian that she herself wrote. Yay! Let's read, shall we? I'm calling for a cabinet of women to stop a disastrous no-deal Brexit. Female cooperation was vital to the Paris Climate Agreement and bringing peace to Northern Ireland. We can stop no deal. Well, there you go, guys. The secret that all Remainers have been missing to prevent Brexit, or at the very least, no-deal Brexit, is whamming. Whamming! Women were apparently vital to the Paris Climate Agreement and Northern Ireland's peace agreement. I mean, never mind all the major players were male, but, you know, the minority of women were vital because they were women. Not because of their skills, not because of their acumen and their stateswomanship, whatever. No, just because they were women, because of what's down there and not what's up here in their minds. It is hard to remember a moment in my lifetime when Britain faced a greater crisis. A coup led by a small group of right-wing libertarians is all but complete as the Vote Leave team has been reassembled and taken control of 10 Downing Street. They are set upon implementing the most extreme no-deal version of Brexit, and most terrifyingly, we are running out of time to stop them. Right-wing libertarians. You can't make it up. In case you might be wondering, she is referring to Boris Johnson's election as head of the country due to Theresa May's resignation, and some of the members, apparently, of this cabinet, I think it's Dominic Raab was one of them, and Priti Patel, wrote a libertarian manifesto way back when. So, basically, when David Cameron resigned after the vote and Theresa won the leadership election back in 2016, apparently that is okay now, because it's Theresa May. She's a Remainer and a whammon, like Lucas. And apparently, Gordon Brown's exact same rise to the leadership in 2007, thereabouts, after Blair resigned, is also okay, because he's Gordon Brown, and in a similar ideological position to Lucas, though being of the New Labour, he's more neoliberal than neo-Marxist, but oh well. Apparently, Theresa May was not a wet Tory coup, and Gordon Brown was not a Blairite consolidation of power in the style of a coup. But Boris Johnson, he's a right-wing libertarian coup. As if that's a bad thing. Right-wing libertarians are basically extreme liberals in a way and tend to leave people alone. Is that really such a bad thing? And apparently this government is set upon implementing the most extreme version of a no-deal Brexit. I wish I knew what that was, and I'd love to know how they're going to do this, when the Prime Minister is literally saying in every speech and passing comment that he wants a deal, a new deal, that is better for Britain, and less of a surrender document, as Yanis Varoufakis said on Question Time. I fail to see how the government is gearing us up for one. Yes, Boris did say we must be prepared, but how is that a bad thing? If the EU continues to say no to negotiations and refuses to compromise, then we will have to leave without a deal. Whether you like it or not, that's all they've said. At times of national crises, political leaders need to bring a country together, but that is not happening. The government is hell-bent on creating more divisions, scapegoating our friends and neighbours, and ignoring the inequality and democratic deficit that fueled the Brexit vote. I'm sorry, but coming from a Remainer, that's cheap. It's you who incessantly call anyone who disagrees with you racist. You're the ones who create cultures of fear in areas you dominate, making it out that you are the dominant voice. If anyone dares to speak out, they will be ostracised. Your incessant uses of slurs like gammon against white people or any kind of variation when it comes to minority Brexiteers, essentially calling them Uncle Toms, and blatant class warfare is another example. Boris has barely even been in the job and done nowhere near as much in that time. In fact, he talked about literally strengthening and redoing the ties that bind every Briton, every single one of us. Now, does he mean it? Who knows? I don't know. But it's not the words of someone who is divisive. By the way, his cabinet is hella diverse. More than yours and your list. Oh, but that would be spoilers, guys. But again, I just find it funny that we're ignoring the inequality and democratic deficit that fueled the Brexit vote. So is that why a lot of people who voted for Brexit were working class then? Or I guess we're just going to ignore them and just complain about all the middle class people who didn't get the way that they wanted. It is not only a crash out Brexit that threatens our future, there's the climate emergency too. And an unscrupulous leader would have no qualms about manipulating it to justify the sweeping aside of democratic guarantees and people losing their rights. We have to avoid this danger. Wait, Boris Johnson Johnson, of all people, wants to manipulate climate change to his advantage to take more control. That's literally your party's entire reason of being on this planet, Lucas. That is your MO. Yes, he's big into cycling and being green himself, but apparently that's because he's a secret authoritarian. Then pray tell, Caroline, what does that make you? Because in the header of this very article, you are right in front of a People's Vote banner. You know, the vote that wants to ignore the democratic will of the British people in favour of the losing side. I think this is just pure projection on your part. Mending our broken democracy should underpin the response to both the Brexit and climate crises, with elected politicians setting aside our political differences in the national interest. When the 16-year-old Greta Thunberg visited Britain earlier this year, I convened cross-party talks with her on how to end our climate emergency. Same degree of cooperation is needed to confront what's happening in the name of Brexit. If you cared about democracy, you would just deliver Brexit, come what may. Instead, you are for the so-called People's Vote, and you're trying to create a parallel cabinet, a parallel power, as Trudeau Sr. put it, to stop the government from enacting at the very least no-deal Brexit. How do you in any way support democracy yourself, and you speak about mending it? Does this mend mean doing away with it entirely? Also, Greta Thunberg, really? You honestly think name-dropping that apocalypse guru, as the French call her, is going to give you points? We need an emergency cabinet, not to fight a Brexit war, but to work for reconciliation, and I believe this should be a cabinet of women. I mean, just get a random demographic to solve deep-seated issues. Go ahead, Caroline. Also, this is entirely about Brexit, and you are not interested in any kind of reconciliation. You only want to create more trouble to stop Brexit. Why women? Because I believe women have shown they can bring a different perspective to crises, and they're able to reach out to those they disagree with and cooperate to find solutions. It was two women, Betty Williams and Mairead Corrigan, who began the Peace People movement during the worst of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. It was two women, Christiana Figueres and Shalane Royal, hope I'm pronouncing that right, who were key to the signing of the Paris Climate Agreement. Intractable problems are found the beginning of resolution thanks to the leadership of women. You were literally cherry-picking women out of history in order to justify your sexist and authoritarian reasons to prevent Brexit. That's it. Women, when it comes to politics, are neither more cooperative or empathetic than the men. Unfortunately, only ruthless people make it in politics. Also, it's very dubious to call these women leaders, especially as the literal Prime Minister of the UK and the two most powerful men in Northern Ireland were there too, and let's not forget that there were other important males that you're ignoring, like the man who organised the protest that culminated in Bloody Sunday. That was a man, and he was a Protestant at that too, but I guess we're just going to ignore all the hard work of other people in the Troubles and just concentrate on these four particular people, just because they're women, not because of the good work they did, not as individuals, but as women. I just think that's far more sexist thing, a more divisive thing, than just saying, these are good people, let's emulate them because they're good people. But anyway, we must move on. So I have reached out to 10 women colleagues from across the political spectrum at Westminster and Holyrood. Conservatives, Liberal Democrats, Labour, the SNP, Plaid Cymru, the Independent Group for Change, asking that we join together to stop the dangerous pursuit of a crash-out Brexit. So basically, you've got the dirty dozen of the worst that British politics have to offer in order to prevent the democratic decision you disagree with. I'd love to see who made this list. I'm sure it's totally good enough for your supporters. This is not an attempt to replace one coup with another. A small group of us should not be deciding on Britain's future, and that is not what lies behind my initiative. But we need to find a way forward that allows the British people to decide which course they want to take. You are literally attempting just that by calling this a cabinet. The cabinet is what helps run the country. They are the politicians that have been granted the power by the people and the Queen to run our country in our name. Regardless of how Boris came to his job, we don't vote individuals into office, we vote the parties, and we expect these parties to rule, again, in our name. What you propose is, as I mentioned before, a parallel cabinet of power in order to use preventative measures to stop the government from functioning in its capacity to deliver Brexit. That is a coup. Boris did not lead a coup, but it seems that you and crazy commie John McDonnell are all in favour of that, whilst projecting it onto Brexiteers. Also, the British people had a vote in 2016. They've already made their choice. They want Brexit and they want it now, but yet you just don't want to give it them. To begin with, that means denying Boris Johnson the reins of power through a no-confidence vote and establishing a national unity government. Political tribalism would likely scupper any moves that are just about putting Jeremy Corbyn in charge. So far, the Labour leadership's reaction has been to suggest that they would not work in coalition with other parties, and politicians from some other parties have made clear that they would not serve under his leadership. A government of national unity must do exactly that. unite parties. And I believe that a cross-party cabinet of women has the potential to do exactly that. You do realise that a no-confidence vote has to be established with sufficient cause to do so. It cannot just be brought out willy-nilly to any Prime Minister we don't like, just because Theresa May went through one. Seriously, how is this not a coup? And yeah, I'm glad a national government isn't going to happen due to political tribalism. If you lot all banded together, the country would be in real trouble. I can guarantee the Brexiteers in Parliament would be outnumbered by the Remainers, much like they were during the May government, despite public opinion being overwhelming with Brexit, and they will be purged. You will not deliver Brexit if this happens, and somehow you think a cabinet of women is somehow going to achieve this? How do you know these women are as tribal as the men? Because I've seen how a lot of leftist women and right-wing women act, and they are just as tribal as the men. This is literal insanity made manifest in words. We then need to press the pause button in order to organise a confirmatory vote that offers people the choice of the status quo or pressing ahead with the latest government plan, whether that is a revised withdrawal agreement or, as seems more likely, a proposal to leave with no deal. So, making a mockery of democracy, stopping Brexit, and hoping that people vote your way the next time round. The status quo, by the way, is remaining in the European Union. The pressing ahead you speak of is Brexit. I'm sick of Remainers going on about Brexit as if it's already happened when it hasn't. How many times have you heard them saying, it's failed, it's not working, let's have a new vote, when it hasn't happened? We have not even left. It's ridiculous. And again, we know damn well that this is not going to be on the ballot sheet. It's going to be remain or leave, because that's ultimately her goal. That's why she's in front of that picture. It also means a commitment that as politicians, we accept the outcome of that fair, transparent and informed vote, even if it delivers a result we do not agree with. The only reason you demand this new vote, so-called people's vote, is because you cannot live with the result you did not want. And every Remainer knows that if Remain had won, the Brexit side will not be clamouring for a new vote. I believe we can make this happen. I am asking my colleagues to meet with me in the coming days so together we can transform the conversation about Brexit. So together we can find a positive way forward, revitalise our democracy and stand up to this government's reckless gamble with Britain's future. Well, I hope it goes splendidly, Caroline. Anyway, do you guys want to see the list? Well, looky here, if it isn't some of the most tribalistic politicians in our country. Nicola Sturgeon, a woman who is hell-bent on preventing Brexit and a Scottish nationalist, and look, also, a Cook Party member. Their entire reason of existence is tribalism. Jo Swinson, another political tribalist who can't handle the opposite side. And well, the less said about the Conservative and Labour members, the better. But there's one more problem with this cabinet that people pointed out. They are all white. Yes, VC Lucas was instantly attacked for her proposed coup not being intersectional enough. Oh dear. Bring out the sad trombone. Womp womp. In fact, the criticism was so great, she even had to apologise. I realise I did not get this right. Oh dear, Lucas. If only you knew how wrong you actually were. Caroline Lucas has apologised for suggesting an all-white list of women for her proposed emergency cabinet. The Green Party MP had earlier suggested a cross-party cabinet made up of women should be formed to block a no-deal Brexit and push for a second referendum. In an extraordinary move, Miss Lucas wrote to 10 other female politicians opposed to a no-deal break with the European Union, inviting them to form the temporary government. Among the women she asked to join her are Labour's Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry, Liberal Democrat leader Jo Swinson, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, and Labour's Yvette Cooper. But she was quickly criticised over the list, which included no women of colour. Oh dear, just not enough women of colour. Still, who can blame her? There's hardly any anyway, and if she did include somebody, it would have to be Diane Abbott, and nobody wants her to be involved in anything important. An all-white list of women isn't right, Miss Lucas said. I should have reached out further and thought more deeply about who and what kind of politics an all-white list represents. I apologise. She said she had chosen the group by first inviting the leaders and deputy leaders of the main political party. I wanted 2 representatives from the main opposition party to represent the diverse views within it. Emily Thornberry is the Shadow Foreign Secretary who most often deputises for Jeremy Corbyn. Yvette Cooper has led cross-party parliamentary attempts to stop a no-deal Brexit from the backbenches. I realise I did not get this right, she added. Miss Lucas also invited Heidi Allen, an independent MP who formerly led Change UK, to be part of the group. I'm sorry, Lucas, but the intersectional left doesn't value ideological diversity, only physical diversity. Even then, your coup would not be that ideological diverse anyway, as wet Tories and likes of you barely have any points of disagreement anyway. Change UK, which is now called the Independent Group for Change, is currently polling at 1%. While Miss Lucas wrote to Miss Cooper, a Labour backbencher who has not explicitly supported a second referendum, she did not write to Diane Abbott, Labour's Shadow Home Secretary, who has previously expressed support for a second vote. Miss Abbott said the emergency cabinet plan won't work now, whatever the gender of the participants in a Twitter post. There are women of colour colleagues who are standing up to this government's reckless gamble with Britain's future, and it was wrong to overlook them, Miss Lucas said. I apologise to them and all who've been hurt by their exclusion. There are always lessons to be learnt, and I will do my utmost to support, value and uplift women of colour working in politics, particularly those with whom I share common ground. A most politician's statement, Lucas. You truly are stateswoman-like. So she picked the most irrelevant women out of the bunch over Diane Abbott. It just shows really how low they actually think about her. But to be fair to Abbott, she also did express some scepticism of not just the people's vote, but also the cabinet, and somehow doing these things will make things go Remain's way. So maybe Lucas just wanted women she could persuade or not create any discord in. Who knows? I would hazard a guess that perhaps Diane Abbott is too much of a free spirit for them. Just a thought. Again, they're not interested in ideological diversity. But regardless, here we have a textbook example of what happens when you get woke and you go broke. But not only that, it is a reminder of the types of people we have to deal with and remove democratically in order to save and fix our country. The more authoritarians like Caroline Lucas we have, who are willing to subvert the country with parallel powers, and communists doing similar things like Corbyn and McDonnell, we're going to have an uphill battle saving liberty in this country. But that's the end of the video. Don't forget to drop a comment, like and share the video, and until next time, I'll see you later.